The shackles of the past can bind us in the present, containing, confining, and forcing us into a shallow and hollow representation of ourselves, a representation which is caged by the weight of time, by the weight of who we have seen ourselves as having been. In this sense, our past selves bleed into the present as faint memories, as fixed idealizations which have the effect of limiting and caging our authentic and free expression. Many people see themselves as victims of the past, as victims of circumstance, and in doing so, they amplify and reify the influence of who they once were. When we identify with the past, we allow ourselves to be molded by that which does not change, for the past is fixed and unyielding. Yet we, in our essential nature, are not static beings. Change, motion, and transformation are our nature. To excessively identify with the past is to align ourselves with something which is stagnant. And if we heed the past too religiously, we risk impeding our own development. Many linger on past events, dwelling in energies that neither change nor evolve. And while we may reformulate our perception of the past itself remains unchanged. And so we should ask ourselves how much of our present is dictated by habit, is dictated by the echoes of what once was. And if the past does influence the present, to what extent do we allow it to? And how do we cultivate detachment from past energies which do not serve us anymore? These are the questions that we should ask ourselves as we navigate our paths, striving towards growth, towards peace, and towards the culling of self-limiting patterns. How do past energies manifest? These past energies, they may take the form of habits of our mind as self-limiting beliefs that are conditioned into us by past experience. We may tell ourselves that I am this way because of my past, and in doing so, we frame the past, our past, as a force of determination, as a sculptor of fate. But if we are to inquire truly into the nature of how the past affects the present, we will find that we are not completely determined by the past. We are merely influenced by it. And we have the choice, the conscious ability to decide the extent of this influence. It is the activity of awareness which frees us from the past, and it is the construction of the mind which keeps us shackled to it. The mind, appearing through assumptions and beliefs, assigns us an identity. It tells us who we are, what we are capable of, and where our limits lie. The mind, it boxes. And these self patterns, these mental self patterns, these thoughts that we have about ourselves, these ingrained ways of seeing ourselves, they may have been forged in childhood. They may have been shaped by our, experience from this early age through adolescence, young adulthood. But we should understand that this conditioning is not absolute. It is not unchanging. It is not fixed. We are not a prisoner to it. See, if we introspect in the nature of the way these past energies arise in the present, they may arise as a thought. Perhaps it's a doubt. Perhaps it's a fear. Perhaps it's a memory of failure. And when these things arise, there is a temptation to linger in it, to pull on the thread of our negative thoughts. And when we pull on this thread, when we pull on it repeatedly, we will sink into rumination. And rumination, by its nature, it is not an effective way of introspecting into our mental phenomena. Really, it's a very dense mental process. It often does not lead to insight. It tends to have the effect of trapping us in repetition, and we should really narrow and make explicit in our heads this idea that, whilst we may be able to change our thoughts about the past, we cannot change the past itself. And we should remind ourselves that the present moment is the only space in which growth occurs. The past and the future are mental constructions that are formulated in the now, and therefore the present is the most integral dynamic of our experience. When we dwell in the past, we dwell in thought. But thought is not reality, it is an echo. It is a shadow of something that once was. And when we linger too long in that which does not change, we lose sight of that which does. This does not mean that we should ignore the past. We must integrate our experiences, but we should not dwell in them. To stagnate in past events, it arrests our experience. It stops it. It keeps us bound to cycles which do not serve us. And this leads us to an important question. This question of how do we relate to a past? How do we relate to the past in a way that fosters growth rather than hindering it? And I think to achieve this, we need to shift our perception. And we should choose to see our past as not something that damaged or hindered us, but as something that shaped us, as something that led us to this present moment, the only moment, of course, in which we have the power of action. We should look upon the past with reverence and not resentment, with understanding and not regret, because regret and resentment are illusions. They are emotions which do not serve us. And we, in the present, we have the choice, ultimately, to create new paths for ourselves. The past is always the culmination of present actions, and this is why the present moment is so crucial. It is the space. It is within this space that all things begin and dissolve. And our consciousness, it is shaped by what we give attention to. And where we place our awareness, our energy will follow. And if we direct our attention and awareness to the past, we give the past power. And if we shift our attention towards the present, we reclaim our freedom. We dictate and direct our energy towards that which we can change. When we direct our energy towards the past, something we cannot change, we are wasting it frivolously. And this is why mindfulness is essential in this objective of transcending the weight of history. And to be mindful is to become aware of the workings of mind, to witness how thoughts arise, how the past will seek to impose itself upon the present. But in witnessing this clearly, we gain this power to choose. And when we gain this clarity, we can acknowledge the past without necessarily succumbing to it. We can see our thoughts, the echoes of the past as they arise, without becoming identified with the thoughts, without becoming lost in thought. The past, the present, and the future are not separate, they are continuous. Yet it is only in the present that we have agency, only in the present that we can decide upon who we are becoming. So let us not linger in what already has been. Let us not sink into the illusion of permanence in a world of constant change. Instead, let us use our past as guides and not as cages. Let us shape our future not from fear, but from conscious intent. The present moment is all there is, and within it, everything is possible.